every time. Okay, we are live. Welcome to the Backdrop weekly dev meeting. We are live streaming this on YouTube and recording it. So if you don't want to be recorded, please turn off your camera and or mic. But we do welcome people participate in these meetings, join us in Zoom and engage with us. So if that's your choice, please join us. Let's start with our regular introductions. I mentioned that we might have my sister coming today, and she didn't get the link in time, and I did just send it to her, and she was going to come and just kind of observe our meeting today. So if she pops in and doesn't know what's going on, that's what's happening. I don't know if I told her that these were being recorded, so I might remind her of that once she gets here. But she's going to then meet with us later and talk about our process maybe a little bit and give us some thoughts. Anyways, my name is Tim Erickson. I'm here from Deerwood, Minnesota. The turkeys have just arrived to feed outside my window. And most of my focus over the last week has been on, I've started a contrib theme I'm excited about, tentatively called Opera. And I've been doing a lot of work on that. So a little bit of contrib stuff. I haven't been in the core issue queue much, but looking forward to this meeting. Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg, usually in Australia, joining from Greece. I've been away for a week or so. Usually when I'm away, I just don't attend the meetings, but I still follow the Zulip chat and the issue queue, but this time I was away. So I'm trying to catch up with everything and help where I can. I've gone through all the Zulip chat, and now I'm looking forward to go back to the issue queue and my pull requests over the weekend. Passing on to Robert.
I'm Robert Lang from Altadena, California. Bug folder on GitHub and Zulip, and lately I've been working on bugs. Jack.
Hello, I'm Jack Aponte, pronouns are they, them. I'm getting back in the loop on all things Backdrop, so I'm mostly just lurking and listening while also dealing with emerging sites, well, mostly Civ and CRM sites, but anyway, doing both, so that's why my camera is mostly off. Good to see everyone. I'll go to Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen Lampton. I'm joining from Oakland, California. My pronouns are she and her. I am very excited about working on Backdrop projects. I launched a site yesterday and I've got another one coming up in a few weeks. Yeah, hopefully I'll get some more time here soon to help with all the Backdrop stuff I want to work on. Let's see, I wasn't here in the beginning. Greg, have you gone already? Yes. Robert has Tim.
Yes. Yes.
Is there anyone who hasn't gone yet? Who else?
Jason.
Jason?
Hi, I'm Jason Flatt from Las Vegas, Nevada. Back-end developer. I'm mostly here for the pre and post meeting discussions and just to hear what's going on. Phil.
Hey, Phil Ward out of Wichita, Kansas. Kind of here just to see what's going on. I don't have anything in particular to bring up or discuss. I think that's probably it, isn't it?
And me, I'm Nate Lampton from Oakland, California. And yeah, just checking in on everything. Also have had a real busy week and haven't been able to get through the review queues recently, but we'll still go through and talk about the progress that we're making as a community. Jen, since you managed to come back, would you be able to give us the contributed project updates?
Yeah, so we've had 4 new contrib modules with official releases in the last week. That includes CiviCRM group nodes, JWT, which I think is Jason, I forget, something fancy, views, auto refresh, and translation access. Nate, did you just look that up for me? No.
Jason Web Tokens.
Jason Web Tokens.
There we go. I thought I saw your cursor move over it, and I'm like, he's gonna save me. No. Jason Web Tokens. That's it for contributed project updates. I have seen a ton of activity happening in Contrib lately, so I just wanted to send another thank you out to everybody who's working on porting modules, creating modules, and making new releases of existing modules. So thanks, community. And then let's turn it back over. Oh, actually, should we go into website related tasks? So we have this ongoing issue. We're supposed to be figuring out issue number 487 in the backdropcms.org queue about how to support more information from a modules info file. I don't know if that's made any progress since last meeting, but I think it needs a review. And I don't think we have anything pressing happening on the forum website, but the API website is currently being updated. We have changed it to a documentation site instead of just solely an API, and we're currently working on migrating the content from the primary backdropcms.org site. This week, BW Panda very kindly assigned the ticket to me that I said I would do. So I'm hoping to get to that one today after this meeting is over. There was a great virtual user group earlier this week about multilingual websites, and it sparked a lot of ideas in my head about ways to improve the translation website, but I decided not to immediately start working on them because I have enough on my plate. But I'm hoping that we'll be able to make the process of contributing documentation easier, or for contributing translation files easier for people in the future, since I couldn't figure out how to do it. We also have a new website we're working on, which is our events site. And Tim and I tried to have a meeting on Tuesday after the virtual user group to discuss the future of that, but we were distracted by all of the amazing conversations based on content in the virtual user group. So Tim, I don't know if you want to touch base later today about that also. We have more work to do there too. If anyone has anything in particular you think we should be working on for any of those sites, that is information that's also welcome in this weekly agenda. So as activity happens in those queues, we can talk about it here too. Let's turn it over to Nate for an update on Backdrop Core.
Sure. Let's see. So we have a number of bug fixes that we're trying to get in as soon as possible. Sorry, bug fixes that we're trying to get in as soon as possible. For 1.18.2, that will be our next bug fix version. That will come out as soon as we accrue a substantial number of bug fixes that warrant a release. So one of the items we have prioritized for that release that we'd like to get some eyeballs on is issue 4933, the CK editor maximize button. If you maximize the editor and then close the maximize, then it doesn't save the content that you have typed into your editor, which is a big issue. So 4933 is that issue where there's currently no pull request or anything like that. Right now, it's just a call for some help. That issue has been discovered and is rather prevalent because the maximize button is enabled out of the box in new Backdrop installations. So it's something that can affect content entry on all Backdrop websites. Let's see, we have this issue next up that is 4511. Language names are not translated into their native names. This issue was bumped from the 118.1 release and is ready to go in anytime, but does require an update hook. So that issue we can merge in pretty much any time, and it will probably be in there shortly. PHP 8 support has seen some kind of interesting things this past week, issue 4772. It looks like from the reading of the issue, Gregory, that now Lando has a PHP 8 support, and that makes testing this a lot easier. Is that right?
Yep.
And so what has been the outcome of that testing? Does like at this point, is there more work to be done, do you think, on moving this forward? Or now that it's easily testable, is this something that we could probably merge in and then build upon?
It's easier testable for people that are used to or use Lando for the local. And I've tested it with a vanilla backdrop thing, and I had a white screen of death come up with an error. And when I tested with a pull request, then I got through the installer without any problems. So I marked it as, for me, I think, or at least I waited for input, but I haven't done any code review yet.
Great. Excellent. That definitely will make things a lot easier. Setting up multiple PHP versions is a huge hassle. I think that's one of the greatest benefits of these container-based tools.
Yeah, when you use Lando, there's still some errors when you start up about Composer, but that has been fixed in a pre-release version of Lando, but that's not official yet, so it's not in the brew installer cask thing yet. So yeah, waiting for a little bit of more fixes on that end so that we can test easily. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Next up, we have this issue with internationalized menu links, that the active trail gets confused when the same path is in multiple links in multiple languages. It's kind of a hard one to wrap your head around. The issue is 4798. The fix is really simple. However, it's like a 2-line correction. And it's stuck right now because we'd like to get test coverage for it, but writing the tests, it's a complicated scenario, which is a problematic thing because edge case scenarios are the things that we absolutely should be covering in tests because they're hard to reproduce. So yeah, we're stuck right now that we have complicated tests that need to be written. I don't want to really flex on that too much. I know the kind of request was, can we just not have tests because it fixes a problem? And
I think I came up with an idea of a way that we can reproduce the problem without the current steps to reproduce, but it would involve creating a custom module to mimic the behavior abuse arguments, which shouldn't be too hard, but it is very different, so that none of the stuff we have now can be used to have to really be a brand new from scratch solution. But
yeah,
there's
I kind of like that. Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. Just make a module that has those menu entries directly rather than setting up a view to do the same thing. That's a great idea. Yep, and we've got lots of examples of those hidden testing modules. There probably already is one for menus that we could just add additional items to. Great, good idea. Okay, next up is a new issue, the bug folder, I think filed 4953. Bug folder is Robert Lang, who is joining us for this meeting. I can give the short version that we at one point removed the long filter tips. I can't quite remember what that link used to say. More information about text formats, I think. And then it would take you to a page that had a lot of information in it. And it's come up from a contrib issue that that page is sometimes important. And so, Robert, do you want to elaborate more on what the problem is and if you have any thoughts on ways to fix it?
Yeah, so the specific problem that arose was in the token filter module, a user complained with some justification that the short description of the filter didn't say what tokens were allowed and what could be used. And that information is in the long description, but there was no way for the user to know in the formatting options that they could get there, how to find that. And so the suggestion, before I knew that it had been removed, my suggestion was to just add a link to formatting options that would have been more information. So basically what was removed.
It sounds like we don't have any real solid alternatives quite yet, because I don't think that we want to add the link back. Some of the issues that we had with it when it was first removed include that it takes you to another page. That was a big thing. So while the solution to that was to open it up in a new window, but still it's another page that takes you away from the content editing form. And then that page was also created at a time where text formats were more developer oriented, where it was like, here's how to type HTML and here's potentially how to use certain markdown components. And now that we include a rich text editor out of the box, a lot of that help text just isn't relevant, despite the fact that it's still there. Like, here's how to type a bold tag. Really doesn't matter. It does matter if you're using like Markdown or something like that, but yeah, still we're definitely more oriented towards the rich text editor than we are on these hand typed text formats. So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, for the token filter module, even if someone's using the rich text editor, it's useful to the user for them to see what tokens they can put into their rich text editor.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
One idea I had, I think I posted somewhere in the queue, was as a possibility to avoid actually leaving the page would be a JavaScript pop-up overlay, like tooltip style thing.
Mm-hmm. Like the token browser.
Yeah.
Yeah, which actually in the case of this, because it's actually related to tokens, that literally could be the solution, is using the existing token browser filtered to the tokens that are available. However, I don't think the token browser can insert into CK editor. It can only insert into text fields and text areas. I think it does have some like JavaScript that when you click on the token, it will insert where your cursor last was. But I don't think that works with CK editor yet. But if this is the solution that we're moving towards, then adding that capability would be a good solution. But that would mean that we'd end up with something that is specialized for this token module, and it wouldn't really be a core solution, other than fixing it so that you could insert into CK editor. Like potentially there could be some collaboration there where core fixes that limitation, and then contrib, this token filter module, could just utilize that.
As maybe a side question is, should the documentation on call filter tooltips that tells you, that instructs you to provide a short and a long version, should that somehow be updated to note that the long version basically is kind of deprecated? Or is it, people put it, if we provide a long version, there's an expectation that users would eventually be presented with it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think the way that we're treating that page is that it's deprecated. We just haven't, maybe at the time that we made that decision, we weren't so clear on when and what to do with deprecated stuff. But I think, first of all, we should make that decision. Is it deprecated? And then if it is, then yeah, we should update the documentation and note that the second parameter, long or shorter, I'm not even sure if it's the second or first parameter, that parameter is deprecated and really only short is ever used. I think all of those things are good ideas that we should do.
So what happens next?
Well, I think in this issue, because of the way that it's titled and phrased, I think that we should use it as the discussion for, is this thing deprecated, and update the documentation. And then we should make a separate issue for the token browser can't enter into CK editor. And then we should make a contrib issue, or use the existing contrib issue to say that should open it up in a modal. instead of using the long filter tips. So that three-way attack.
So basically, the token filter allows you to use tokens in the rich text area, right?
Right.
So yeah, it feels natural to me to just use the token browser. We should head towards that. That's the ideal solution.
So just put the token browser in the short description.
Yeah, there's a way that you can format the link that will automatically make it. Actually, I think there's a theme function for theme token browser modal link or something like that will make the link that will open the token browser, and you tell it what token types to allow, and then it shows it. So it's really easy to make the link and to make a modal pop up anywhere in Backdrop. But yeah, we need to make it work with CKEditor.
Okay.
But for starters, you could probably switch that to a link and try it on not a CKEditor, just on a text format that doesn't have an editor at all, and confirm that it works to that extent. Okay. I'd also would love it if there are any thoughts about long filter tips, and if they are still useful in some way, get some counterpoints to that in this issue that we already opened, 4953, or if people are in agreement with what we've done in the past, which is just kind of quietly sunset the long filter tips.
From this discussion that we had just now, though, it sounded like those long filter tips were being sort of like abused for a thing that should otherwise be solved in a more ideal way, a proper way. At least in the case of token filter, yeah.
Yeah, in this case, we already have a better tool, I think, and that we should just use that better tool that doesn't take you off the page, that more clearly shows you what the tokens are, and provides the capability to insert them without copying and pasting. All of those things seem like they're substantial benefits over using a separate page. Okay, great. Do you guys have anything else you would like to bring up for bug fixes to discuss? Okay, let's go on to 119. 119 will be the next minor version of Backdrop, coming out May 15th, 2021, with feature freeze approximately 2 weeks before on May 1st. We have a number of issues here on which we're moving a little bit at a time. One of the items that got moved from the previous release is an issue that Lauren is advocating for, the exposed file name filter for a media library dialog to make it easier to find items. We haven't made any progress on this issue recently. There's a technical challenge here that we've got nested form tags in the HTML that make it so that filtering doesn't work correctly. And so issue 3293 needs some technical guidance as to ways that we could solve this problem. Let's see. Next up, we have better support for cache tags and cache max age, issue 4127. Joseph, could you give us the update? Although I have a feeling I know what you'll say.
He's not here.
Oh, sorry. What he would say if he were here was that there's a pull request that needs review. And so that also needs some looking at to just confirm the general approach and to also see where we need to go from here. So he's at a holding point where it needs review before going forward further. Next up is, Jen, an issue that you're working on. Field has value visibility condition for blocks. It's issue 4728.
I do not have an update on that one this week.
Okay, it's totally fine. Adding relationship support to layout context, issue 2134, an issue Doc Wilmot has been working on. This is really close. It needs some minor renaming of things, and that's always the hang up, right, is naming things. But It's in a really good place as far as being complete. Almost got into 1.18 actually, but I think we were nervous about including such a major feature right at the deadline. So this issue, I would really love it if we could get it completed as soon as possible, rather than leaving it to the last minute. Largely because if Doc Wilmot were liberated of that issue, he would probably pick up another one.
He specifically stated that he's holding that issue hostage until we solve the one with the .info files.
Until we solve which issue?
The one that we skipped, sort of like nicely. It was 487. What was yes, the one that's related to the websites at the top of the agenda. 487.
The more info files?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's his law. So unless we sort that out, he said he's not the other one alone.
Well, I posted a comment to that one saying I think we should just merge it, but we should merge it and deploy it all together. If we merge code to backdropcms.org's repository, I don't want to leave it to a point later down the road to like actually deploy it, because then if there were some problem, the person that deployed the code might not have any idea that it was related to something that they were not expecting.
Maybe we should add a note that we don't usually cave into such extortions, but
For some people, we make an exception.
Exceptional people.
I don't know. Maybe we should make a note saying we do cave to such extortions. we will accept more work in exchange for you doing work. Yeah. Well, in all cases and jokes aside, let's also just generally show some appreciation for Doc Wilmot and all of the work that he has been doing consistently and regularly, and how much we appreciate it in all forms. So thank you, Doc Wilmot. Okay, next up, updating the core module theme and layout pages. The update pages for core modules, themes, and layouts into a single page for all updates, issue 2714. Gregory, you're the advocate for this. Are there any updates?
There's no update since last time. We're really close. I just need to figure out why the dashboard block is breaking things. But yeah, I haven't been doing much PR work lately, but I'll get back to that.
Okay. And lastly, changing the word edit to configure in configuring roles is issue 4899. BW Panda is the advocate for this. It's marked RTBC. I don't think that we are going to hold up on wildcard redirects, which is another sub-related issue, 2833. So this issue is currently marked RTBC because it has fairly minor consequences, although it does change URLs for some administrative paths. We have a separate issue to make it so that those deprecated paths continue working across the board. That's 2833. But in the past, we have not required all of the deprecated paths to continue working. We get the main ones working, but then the deeply nested per item menu links are not working from old versions. So it's a pretty minor change, but it is a change nonetheless, and it would be nice if we could get 2833 also completed at the same time to keep those old URLs working across the board. We don't have anything else for 119, I don't believe. So we can go into initiative updates. The documentation update, unofficial initiative, BW Panda is taking the lead on that. We'd mentioned earlier in the meeting that there's the new docs website, docs.backdropcms.org, and work is ongoing there to consolidate all developer and end user documentation onto that one site.
I have a few questions. So I know Jen muted herself, but maybe if she's available, she can answer. There was supposed to be migration of content for the user guide that we currently host on the main site onto that side. The other day I was trying to edit a change record, I think, on the API side, which is now the doc side. And I was reminded of the fact that it doesn't use CK editor. So we might come into problems with that because the existing content has been using BU editor, is it something, another editor. And it's not as user-friendly to create or edit existing documentation as it is on the main site. So this is a problem that we will eventually need to address.
Yeah, I think that's going to become a factor as we move that end user documentation, which is more likely to include imagery and screenshots compared to change logs, which are more developer oriented. Yeah, the original API site is one of the oldest sites that we maintain, and it has not been moved forward quite as frequently as the flagship site. And so there's lots of things that are from when Backdrop was much less capable, like we're not even using link fields where we have links, for example.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of UX work to be done to kind of bring it up to speed with Backdrop's current capabilities.
A quick solution might be to have separate, to allow different filter formats with different editors, and then people can switch to that when creating user documentation, I guess, or start using it from now on.
Yeah, possibly. Different pieces of content using different formats can just cause some confusion because one person might go through and edit like 4 pages. And if some pages are using one format and other pages are using another format with a different editor, they probably have a preference for one or the other. And then you can kind of end up having like text format wars where people are coming in and editing the same piece of content and flipping back and forth to text format to get a different editor.
Fair enough. But ideally, we'd move into a single one, and that would be CK editor, right? So the intention is to, oh no? All right, Jen?
No? Oh, I'm surprised,
No,
Jen. I would have thought yes.
Well, so this is a website where most of the documentation is code. And so we need to be able to enter code, and you can't enter code snippets with CK editor. So the reason we chose to put the BU editor on there is because it helps you write the code. Like it writes the markup in the same way CK editor, but without a visual interface on top of it. And so I think that might still be the better option for this site. Maybe we should do some user testing. Because we also might end up with like different node types that might be better suited for different editors, because that would be fairly easy to configure on a field level, where all of our normal documentation that's just like the user guide and stuff could use a CK editor. And then the documentation pages where we do have code samples, like API pages and stuff like that, could still use the other one. But I wouldn't want to see us change, because I'm also worried that if we change the editor on an existing page, it's going to break the current formatting. So if we can find a way to add the best experience for the new pages without losing anything on old ones, I think that would be ideal.
Just so that I wrap my head around what you just said with regards to code snippet adding. So what is it that BU editor does that CK editor doesn't do?
It's the other way around. CK editor adds a JavaScript layer on the front end so that when you hit like bold, it wraps the text in bold, but it doesn't actually show you the like strong tag. It shows you the text bold formatted. BU editor adds the strong tag and shows you the strong tag, but doesn't have anything on the top to render it into a bold text. And so it's the editor that like Dribble.org uses when you're creating issues. So it sort of assumes that everyone who's working on this stuff understands HTML, but it also gives you the ability to put in like massive swaths of PHP code, which CK editor wouldn't know how to format properly for you.
Are you saying if I hit Control B in BU editor, it visually adds the strong tags? Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that code problem, Jen, is just a CK editor issue that we kind of need to solve anyway, that we need a better way to insert code snippets into CK editor. Like that should be totally supported for us to, be able to copy and paste large PHP snippets into CK editor and have it render. as
There's
a code
probably
snippet.
a CK editor plugin for it that's just not part of core. And there might even be like a Drupal contrib module we could leverage that would already integrate it with, well, maybe not our editor, but it could be close enough
Okay.
that we can
Yeah,
figure out.
So clicking on the source button doesn't work?
Well, that's fine, but it's not formatted.
But
mean,
then
I'm
you
sure-
save it and your code is formatted and you go back in there and reformat it or whatever, or remove the source tag.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I think we need to do some editor testing, is because my experience with the source tag is that it will mess up more than it helps. I have to use it all the time on like normal text, but because the normal CK editor doesn't work right. But when you're trying to edit code, if you switch to source code and then you switch back, it like tries to render your code, which it can't usually do correctly. But if we can fix that problem, I don't know. I think we should test it and find out what the actual problems are and work through a list of them and fix them, because there's a lot of theoretical problems, but maybe we should just try it and see what we get.
And it seems that it would be great if in source code mode for CK editor, if you hit Control B, did the auto tag thing that BU editor does. But yeah, all right.
Yeah, that would be nice, but it's not the way that it functions. And I think that if like we would want CK editor or whatever WYSIWYG we use to provide that natively rather than for us to try to implement like a code editing helper.
I meant if there was a plugin that already does that. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Let's see. So that's it for the. Oh wait, I'm sorry. We're in the initiative. So we already did the 118 update. Okay, so that's it for the documentation update. Telemetry is another initiative. Tim, you're the initiative lead on that. Do we have any updates?
No. And I'm going to jump right, because I don't see Luke still here, to the update for the theme development initiative. And that we have the update there is that we do have a meeting scheduled for 12 o'clock Pacific time next Tuesday. And the goal for that meeting is to kind of, one, summarize what we've done on the initiative, and two, like how to bring it to a close. I think, Luke would kind of like to wrap it up and figure out what I don't know, deliverables we're close to that we could kind of use to finish this up. I'll just say, it occurs to me that when we were first talking about the idea of initiatives, I think there was a sense that there should be like a check-in period after a year or something. And it hasn't quite been a year, I think, since we did the initiatives, but it might be time for both the telemetry and the theme development that we kind of get a year-end check-in, like what progress have they made, and is this process working? Should the initiatives continue, or
so with
is there a better way?
Sorry, with the telemetry thing, the current blockers, or the way that I remember it, was that we needed to figure out where the database, or where we'll store the data.
No.
Blocked on that anymore? Nope.
No. The current blocker is that we sort of got the rough part working, and we need to figure out what the next steps are, I think. I mean, Nate might have more of an idea in his head exactly what he needs to do next, but I actually don't know in my head what has to happen next. I just need to go, but we have figured out where to store the data for now, right? That a decision's been made on that.
Okay.
Does that sound right, Nate?
Yeah, sounds like I need to post a comment if that's the case. So that's the next action. Let's see. So the issue.
Well, if you have an idea of like what needs to happen next, that would be helpful. I think that I could kind of figure that out if I spent a little bit of time. I just haven't found the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my memory of this is that our next steps here involve further improvements to project module to make it so that telemetry can be enabled or disabled on a per project basis, because right now it's enabled just across the board for all of them. The only one that we're actually collecting any data for so far, of course, is Backdrop Core itself. But we would like to make it so that from a privacy standpoint, that contrib modules need to request collection of telemetry data rather than just storing any arbitrary data from all of our users' websites onto backdropcms.org's
Sure.
primary database, just because there's really no limitation to the kind of data you can collect, and us storing arbitrary data from every backdrop site in the world could get us into various safe harbor laws and privacy problems and things like that. So we'd like to make sure that we're only using it for backdrop core initially, and then over time, if we have contrib product or contrib modules that also want to use it, we need to curate that and have the ability to restrict it.
I think the other big blocker was deciding how the exact like process to opt in or out or whatever, right? We've talked about that a lot. I think we generally have an idea how we're going to do it, but I don't think anything's been implemented yet, has it? And we need to sort of solve that.
I think that the general consensus was that it would be a separate module. So if it's a separate module, it can be disabled altogether. And then the decisions needed to be made whether it's going to be opt-in or opt-out during installation of the standard profile.
Yeah, and that portion as well, that we need to start exposing the information in various ways, like finding a way that's responsible. And I think what we want to do is have a checkbox during the installer that says collect information, and then it's there. Either that, or we know for existing sites, we want to get all of the backdrop sites that are out there right now reporting data if they're willing to. And so we also would like to have some kind of notification after you update to a version of backdrop that includes telemetry, a notification requesting that you turn it on of some kind to make it so that we can start getting data from every existing site out there. And if they dismiss the request, then we don't ask again. That sort of thing. But yeah, turning on the module is really the only thing that it would do.
Quick question on this topic. Would it be worth coming in and having, I hate to do a granular control of what information gets sent over, but that's one option. Another thought is to create a telemetry page on the backdrop course, the site itself, right, that is collecting the information. Have a page that basically says, hey, here is what we're going to send over to the servers. That way there's transparency and people can see what information is being sent. And that's
right. It's already there.
Yeah, we do already have a page that does that says these are the things we're collecting, and literally says this is the exact data that we're receiving. However,
where's that located though?
When you turn on the telemetry module, it's underneath reports.
Okay, I have not messed with that yet then. All right, so never mind on that.
Yeah, I think there's screenshots in the issue that show how it is. I think we just need to make it prettier or whatever. It wasn't in a pretty format or something like that. Yeah, anyways.
Yeah, it's fine for right now where we're only collecting 3 pieces of information, but as it gets bigger, it'd probably be more unwieldy. And also as we start collecting more complex types of information, right now it's just like PHP version, what kind of database you're using, and the web server like Apache or Nginx. So it's really limited in what we're doing so far. But if we were to start collecting lists of information, like what are all the core modules you have enabled or something like that, then showing that in the report is one thing, but then showing it as useful information on backdropcms.org is another thing. So formatting of this data definitely is a problem yet to be solved.
Should we leave that for later? Like, should we decide on an MVP and say that PHP, MySQL, and Apache is a good MVP to go for, and then?
I think that's been decided. Yeah.
Yep. We're also trying to do that. Yeah, that we just have this MVP version. Yep. Because even that would be really pretty valuable to us. I think PHP version is probably the most valuable piece of information we could collect. I know I'm always interested to see like what WordPress is doing, and sometimes we even use WordPress's numbers as a basis for our decisions about what to do with backdrop. But it would be better if we just had our own numbers.
Yeah, and Phil rightfully said something about the, what is it called, the module that collects readiness data from D7, that maybe we should be collecting, because it might be all the new backdrop sites that have been created or ported, people have moved them into servers that have newer versions of PHP, but there might be existing sites on PHP 5.6, and we will, these 7 ones, I mean, that are, about to decide what to do, and us deciding to drop support or whatever might be a blocker for them, then having that data from these 7 sites, if they decide to install that status update, I think we call it, or module.
Yeah, the Drupal upgrade status.
Yes, yeah. But that could be a follow-up thing. It shouldn't block the one, I'm mentioning it just as a note on decisions with regards to PHP. But yeah, we have a lot of issues pending on decision, either dropping, anything below 5.6, or dropping support for that in our tests or something like that. We still have a few issues here and there. But it would help a lot to have some data.
Yeah, give some guidance on that. I'm going to go back to real quick on the telemetry for core, is to possibly implement a granular control of what can be sent over. Maybe there's like, as opposed to it's either on or off, maybe allow people to enable just PHP and Apache, but they don't want to send over a list of modules or something of that nature. So it's an idea. I don't know what kind of ramifications that would bring from the collecting of data standpoint, but it might. Yeah,
it ruins the data integrity if we don't have a number of people that are submitting the value in order to compare it to.
Some of the items could be locked in. For example, PHP. It's like you either enable telemetry or don't enable it. But some of these other items that maybe kind of cross over into the privacy territory, those could be a little bit more of a granular control where people could enable or disable those items. Like I said, I mean, it's an idea. It might kind of be a compromise between the privacy concerns and getting some of the information that we're looking for.
Yeah,
I'm muted. I was going to say we should table this until we actually have future fields that we're collecting that we're discussing.
Yeah,
but
we had an implementation that actually did that, and then we looked at it and we're like, I don't know about that. And like Tim is suggesting, we decided let's figure that out later, because there was not only data questions around it, but also the implementation was like leaving cruft around, especially if modules were adding and removing things. So for now, it's just an all or nothing, turn it on or turn it off.
Okay. Yeah. Short term, I think that'd be fine. Long term, I'm just throwing out the idea that granular control might be a good implementation for a long-term approach.
Yeah. Well, we have one more thing that we want to talk about. We're at the top of the hour, and I personally have to drop off. But if you would like to continue, Tim, and talk about the results of the survey, that would be great. Or if you want, we can just end. What would you prefer?
I'm happy to take another 10 minutes if people want to just, I don't know. This may go nowhere. It could explode. We'll see.
Okay. Well,
we can table it in for another meeting, for next week or whatever. But we can start.
I was suggesting we go ahead and start it and see what happens.
Yes, exactly. That's what I said. If it's
I got it.
Okay, I'm going to hop off. Tim, please continue with the results of the survey. Thanks.
We could agree to not let this go too long. So we'll start the discussion. Jen had to leave too. Okay, well, let's go ahead and just start this discussion. It doesn't hurt, and we'll keep it limited, and then we can come back to it. So let me share my screen. There we go. So I have the survey site. For anybody listening to this who isn't familiar, this was whipped up. The idea for this survey was whipped up pretty quickly and meant to be an experiment. Initially, we planned to keep the participation fairly restricted as a test. We ended up broadcasting it fairly broadly that anyone could participate, and basically asked people to prioritize their issues that they felt strongly about. We're thinking about how to use this a feature in the future, but right now I think the main thing is just looking at like what came out on top. One, getting some some feedback on if there were any surprises to people, if anybody has ideas how we can use this data or this information. The assumption going into this is that this isn't a vote, like we're not, the results aren't binding in any way. It's just to help us all inform our prioritization of where we put our efforts. So I'm going to shut up and just see if anybody, you can either go to the website yourself, where I have it on the screen, survey.backdropcms.org. If anybody has any comments about the results, like surprises or things that, Gregory, how about you just start? Tell us, what do you think about the results?
Yeah, so I was expecting to be surprised. Let me say that. So I was expecting, let me just ask a question, a general question before I go further. Is the survey locked now so people can upload? Yeah, okay.
I locked it yesterday or Tuesday.
Yep, cool. So my expectation was that this will be a heartbeat that would help, first of all, developers. If they run out of ideas on what feature to work on next, or non-developers on what to advocate for, they would come here and not necessarily pick the one that is at top of the list, but some, like, one of the three top ones, I guess.
Right.
So it wouldn't be a source of decision. It wouldn't be a source of absolute decision, I should say. And it shouldn't become a source of complaint, as in, we have 100 votes on that, why people are not working on it. So, and that should be made clear, right? But I would like eventually to link to this survey from our roadmap page and call people to sort of like participate more. I was expecting this to work the same or in a similar fashion as it would the petitions work for Classic Press, in other words. Right. If something gets implemented, maybe we allow, as it is now, you can vote for as many or as little as you want. Maybe we could make it so that each person has 10 votes or 5 votes or something like that. And once something is implemented, then they get refunded the vote, and then they can cast another vote to one other. Maybe that would be helpful, but these are just ideas. Right. And all that implies that the survey stays open always.
Sure. So quickly, I think that there's 4 people technically on this call, and one of them I think actually left. It's just Windows open. So it's just a couple of us. But I think we can go ahead and talk for a few minutes about this. And I agree with most of what you're saying. I disagree on just leaving it open. And we can start this discussion now and finish it with other people later. But my argument against that is I just feel like it would lose effectiveness, in that it's hard. I feel like if you do it at one point in time and you give people a deadline, they're motivated to do it. If it's open all the time, it's like it's harder to publicize. I feel like, I might answer these questions now, and if this stays open 6 months from now, my answers from 6 months ago are still there, even though my priorities may have changed. I mean, I might not answer it the same way 6 months from now as I did 6 months ago, but I'm not likely to keep coming back to update unless there's like another deadline, right? If we did it annually or quarterly or, once a release, then I might say, oh, once a release, I'll go do it. But if it's just open all the time, it's like, there's no incentive to ever go back.
Fair enough.
And I feel like it would just get useless.
Is there incentive to go back if you keep voting and you feel like what you're saying is being ignored?
So
maybe I could be wrong. Maybe people would continue to participate, and if they would, then I could see Gregory's point. I'm just afraid that it won't work that way.
My point was that if I am a new user and I just missed the deadline, I feel left out, as in I'm not going to be able to express my opinion. Hey,
darn, I missed it.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I missed it, and now my opinion is not going to count or whatever. But it's just a feeling. This is not a, But the other thing is that in my head, as this evolves, we could automate it so that once a feature here is implemented, an email goes out to the people that voted and says, hey, the thing that you were waiting for is now in core, go and test it. Or even before it goes live, we are working on it. we need people to test it, come and tell us, right? And then once it's removed, we refund that vote and they say, oh, now you have another vote. You may go and vote again, right? So I know that it requires work until we get there, but that's my ideal, way of this working at some point.
So one, my screen is only showing 4 people, not including Jason, and Jason is here, so that means there might be others that I thought left. So that's good.
The screen is showing 5. It's Robert, Phil, Jason, you and I.
Yes, yeah, that's all. Well, I'm not seeing Jason. I just see 4 people without Jason. So,
I don't.
There now I see you. I get it. Okay, I have to do this. It's partly because I'm sharing the screen, so my options changed. I'll just. I mean, we're not going to decide this definitively today. My last comment isn't. I theoretically, I like everything that you're saying about that. Practically, I'm skeptical that it'll work. And it comes a little bit from a background in like trying to do online engagement stuff in the past. And I find, and my experience has always been that short time limited things are more effective than open ongoing things. That open ongoing things lose their impact and their relevance. So
with regards to their effectiveness, would it work for you if we had a blog, because you're talking about announcing that on social media and
sure.
causing people to come, right? How about hey guys, over the next, like on that specific date, the PMC is going to convene and we're going to decide on that, and that. If you haven't voted yet, just go and cast your vote because we're going to take that into account. So locking the survey shouldn't be the mechanism that draws people there, because after that, decisions may be made. That was the point, right?
Well, that's part of the point, but I also believe, Gregory, that 80% of the people that fill out the survey today are not going to come back 6 months later, but their opinions may not be the same. So I just believe that the data will become less valuable because it's less reflective. Like my opinion 9 months from now will be different, but if I don't come back and share that, then the data just isn't working. And if a large percentage of the people aren't coming back and updating their votes, then I begin to take the survey less seriously because I know, well, it's got all kinds of data from a year ago, so why should I trust it?
Oh, so you propose a new survey every
Yeah, I would do a completely fresh survey every 6 months or 9 months, right? And if you want to be included in that new one, you have to come back. So
I'll have to think about that as well.
Sure.
How that could work.
I mean, frankly, I only see it as an annual thing. I think that's enough. But go ahead, Jason.
So how were the things that people voted on added? All the issues, how were they added to the survey?
Well, not ideally. This time, it was added by me. We had some issues about in the last release cycle. We asked people what their priorities were for core development in the issue forum. Or in the forum, forum.backdrop CMS. And so I went in, I took all the suggestions that had come through that channel. Then I also just sort of went into GitHub and looked for the feature requests that had the most comments. And I added some of them. But it was a little bit arbitrary. What?
Some people requested things over Zulip and you added them.
Yes, some people requested them over Zulip and people could add them themselves. And probably about 4 or 5 issues got added by participants. So 2 weeks ago, I closed it for new ideas because I thought it doesn't make sense to collect new ideas the day before you close voting because that idea won't have had a chance to get voted on. So we closed new ideas was open for about 2 weeks. We closed that and then we allowed another 2 weeks for people to adjust their votes.
Okay, so that's quite a bit of effort every time you do a new survey.
Well, but if we did this again, that process would not be replicated.
Do something different.
Yes. First of all, one of the biggest flaws I think in this current survey is that I just cut and paste titles from GitHub issues and sometimes cut and paste descriptions from GitHub issues. And I feel like a lot of people that just came to the survey and looked at these issues wouldn't understand them or they wouldn't mean anything. So I would want either a better process of vetting them or, I don't know. Jen and I looked at trying to do a JSON feed from GitHub where we just automatically pulled in like all of the feature requests or something. But frankly, I don't think that's good either, because if there's too many choices that are poorly defined, then it's hard. I almost feel like a group of people should like curate a list of 30 topics or something, and then maybe allow other, like allow people to suggest things that are missing.
I thought that it would be a cool thing to add to our regular newsletter, as in 3 new people registered and voted. Here's the changes. See how the thing that you were doing over a Zulip channel could be a, this issue went 2 places up, or new votes for that, or down votes for that, or things like that, which could engage things. But yeah, these are thoughts and ideas of how this would work. I think this is useful, but we reached the, across the 10 minutes that we said we're going to discuss this. Maybe we should discuss it again next time.
This was a good discussion. I would like to ask one more slightly different question, which is, you've said that you weren't necessarily surprised, and the question I would ask both Jason and you, and Phil, if you're still there, or anybody else, is what's sort of most surprising. So maybe it's not super surprising, but and I can give you some examples. For example, for me, and Jason would probably not agree with me, but I thought like adding backdrop and migrate to core would be much more popular than it was. The fact that it sort of turned out as low on the survey as it did surprised me a bit. I think the recipe project, that was as popular as it was a little bit surprising, although I like it. The allow multiple file fields, I wouldn't have thought that would be so popular.
I think that when it comes to backup and migrate, I think it's mostly the title of the thing, how it's phrased. So if people are aware through the actual issue and right, see the reasons why we're running it and how we're running it, it's not just merging the module. It's often in a process where we request people to do a backup, like when we do upgrades, there's a step where we say, we have a big fat notice, and we say, go away now, do your backups, and then come again to complete this process. And what we're trying to do is like, have a checkbox there and say, would you like us to back up things for you now? So you don't have to go away and then return. So it's no disruption. You're installing or updating a module, just a tick box there which backups the things, and we tell you, here's the backup, here's the link to the backup, we saved it there, just go on. So it's hard to sort of like put that into a title. So we said merge backup and migrate because that's what it actually does, right? Yeah. But people might think, oh yeah, I can install that. It's a contrib module, I can install it. So it's already there for me. Right. So I'm not going to cast a vote because I can already use it, right? Yeah. If they knew what kind of integration we're planning or ideally to have, maybe they would vote more. I don't know.
Sure.
And also,
but you evaded my question, Gregory. What was the most surprising thing you saw? Like, is there anything on this list, or not really? No.
I'm an ataraxic person. Nothing surprises me.
I field group at the top of the list did surprise me. I was not surprised by reference. I expected it to be on the top of the list.
Right.
But field group, I'm like, what, really? That's just so, and Joseph was the same way, like, wow, can't believe so many people want that in there.
I guess I wasn't really surprised by field group. The recipe, I will say the recipe one did kind of surprise me a little bit. References doesn't surprise me. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I can't really.
How about anything that you thought would do better that didn't?
I will say, like I asked this question early on, and I feel like a lot of the stuff is very like developer site builder centric. There was only one thing that I could find in there that was at all related to anything like better promoting the site, marketing or performance or anything like that.
The SEO thing.
Sure.
What's that?
Well,
better SEO out of the box thing.
Right. Well, it wasn't even SEO; it was something else. That was the only thing I voted for. So, but yeah, I mean, like there's nothing like let's make Backdrop better for the site owner in general for their site out in the world. Everything was like let's make things better for us so we can do our job easier or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I both get your point, and also sort of, I mean, the intention of this was certainly to focus on core development. So, right, like which issues in the core issue queue, we should focus on. And maybe that's,
Sure.
Maybe that shouldn't be the focus of the survey, but I think that's the way we set it up. And so be open to like, what should the priorities for the project be, as opposed to what should but I always thought about this from the beginning as what should the development priorities be.
Okay.
Not that this is a definitive drive, but Field Group has 335,000 site installs. And usually that's a big drive for things to get into core, like views, CPK was the same case. So it didn't surprise me.
Okay.
Real quick.
Yep.
Jason kind of brought up an interesting point on this, that he was kind of surprised that the majority of, or I shouldn't say surprised, he realized that a lot of people want things done from kind of a site builder standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a way that we can kind of look and gauge on where focus needs to be driven based on what people are voting for. So as an example, it's like, okay, this round, people really want the site builder experience to be better.
Mm-hmm.
Once people kind of get to a point where they feel like that's better, that it doesn't need as much focus, well, now I need my content editors, I'm going to vote on things where it's going to make my content editors' lives easier. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's kind of an interesting subconscious metric to kind of gauge and take a look at what the overall community is needing within their environments. It kind of shows the direction, what direction Backdrop is going. Are they going in the right direction for core? Yes. Why? Because people are now wanting, or not on core, but I mean, in the site builder side, things are moving in the right direction because now people want the content editor side. Well, now that's taken care of. Now people want better SEO. So I think it'd be an interesting gauge moving forward with these surveys to kind of see what the overall community is gravitating towards.
Right. Well, I think what Jason and Phil, both of you are pointing at is I've called this a survey,
right,
and because I was trying to avoid vote for your favorite issues. And I didn't want to use the word vote because I didn't want to imply results, right? That there was any bindingness to it. But if we were to start with the idea that we're going to survey members about priorities, I think the survey might be a little bit more nuanced than this. And it might, we might ask additional questions other than just which issues are most, which core issues. So there could be, like where should the community be focusing its effort? And it could be outreach, right? For, promoting itself better. It could be the site builder experience. We could have asked the questions very differently if we'd been thinking about this as a more traditional survey, which it really isn't.
Well, if we wanted to engage people, we can say that voting here alone won't do much. Please take a moment to comment on the issues that interest you the most, and tell us why, or what's the expectation.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe the most important discussion to have about this survey right now amongst ourselves is how do any of you feel like seeing the results is going to affect your participation in the project at all, or your priorities? And if everybody says no, then we maybe wasted our time. Personally, I feel like it's been a little bit helpful to me. I mean, so I'm not going to go run out and work on Field Group because it's the top issue. But mostly, I mean, I might if I thought like I had any idea how to help with that issue. I don't. As I go down this list, the first thing I get to that I feel like I could contribute to is the recipe project type. It's like that is something partly because the first step is just defining what it is. Like, what is that? That's a really vague thing that but I feel like that is something that I could actually contribute to. And the fact that it did so well in the survey motivates me to actually work on it. So I feel like, it's something I was already interested in working on, but I think the fact that it's sort of the top thing on the list that I might be able to help with is useful for me to know and might keep me focused a bit. So does anybody else have any thoughts along those lines, like how it might affect your work?
I don't so much have a thought on how it might affect my work. The question that comes up in my mind is, okay, great, we have some direction. Is there going to be execution on these items?
Well,
I think we made it clear that it's not.
There's nothing binding about
Going to
this.
define it. It's going to affect it, but not define it.
Right, and that is the frustrating part. It's like, why even participate in a survey if there is no action? Great, a bunch of people know that I want field group in there, but it's not going to get in there anytime soon. So, it's kind of a,
because Phil, all of us that are contributing want to know that our contribution has an impact. Right. And if I'm just working on an issue just because it's important to me, that's one thing. But if I'm working on an issue and I know that it's a priority for others in the community, that's a different thing, right? And I'm more likely, if there's two issues out there that interest me and one of them has more support from other people, then that's where I'm going to put my effort. And that was, for me, the only practical outcome of this is if Doc Wilmot is like finishes his current issue and he's trying to decide what to work on next, and he's thinking about doing make form buttons sticky or adding field group to core, he's going to look at the survey and say, well, I guess I'll choose field group to core because that's what other people care about.
Exactly. Also, I'll point out that, Phil, you went to the other extreme. We said that this will not going to dictate direction. We didn't say it's not going to affect it or it's not going to be done, right?
Right.
We never said it's not going to be done or it's going to take too long to be done. We say we'll take this into account when we make decisions. It means whatever it means.
But I just don't see how we can enforce it, right? We can't say to the community, I think it would be discouraging if we said, okay, now our top priority is as a community to get field group and core. So does that mean everybody who's working on other issues is working on the wrong thing? Are we discouraging them, right? And we don't want to do that.
Because some of them are difficult tasks, right? And they might take long for to work on. And they might go for the easiest task, the low-hanging fruits.
I mean, if we had a group of very competent developers who said to us, we don't care what we work on, and we have 100 hours in the next 6 weeks to develop, to commit. You give us anything you want, then we could do a vote, and we could just vote, and we could take the top item and say, okay, you guys go work on that. But we don't have that. So how do we use this in any kind of binding way?
Yeah, and also, may I say something? If we saw that the top two items had like 200 votes or 300 votes, and then the rest had only 10 or 12, that would gauge differently as well, right?
We should end the recording at least. We can continue to talk, but I'm going to turn off the recording.
Yes, sure.
Thanks everybody for participating.
Thank you.